Welcome, everyone joining us today, and happy Women's History Month and Equal Pay Day. I'm Tai Beauchamp, and I'm delighted to moderate an important conversation today about equal pay. Today's panel discussion theme is Women Know Prosperity, because we do, where we'll be discussing how the world can and must work towards a more economically just future for women everywhere. I'm excited to be a part of this conversation as a Black woman entrepreneur. And like many women, I've had to overcome challenges and obstacles to achieve economic freedom and my own version of prosperity and abundance. I've been an entrepreneur now for 17 years, owning 2 businesses, Tai Life Media and Brown Girl Jane. And when I tell you the challenges that we have had as a new beauty and wellness brand, Brown Girl Jane, in raising money to build this organization and company, I know intimately what it takes and also the challenges that come being a Black woman entrepreneur. Women all over the world experience a variety of socioeconomic and gender-based challenges that do not afford them opportunities to reach their fullest potential. And in many cases, the pandemic has reversed progress in expanding women's rights and opportunities. Equal pay continues to be a big part of this shared struggle. And the global pay gap is not just about the difference in dollars and cents. You want to know why? It has a negative compounded effect on the long-term well-being of women and our families as well. So with that said, we have an incredible guest speaker that represent 2 diverse professions, starting with Ritu Sharma, who is the Vice President of U.S. Programs and Policy Advocacy at CARE, and WNBPA President, WNBA MVP, and champion, Nneka Ogwumike. We are happy to have both of you, so welcome. According to the UN, for every dollar men earn, women earn 77 cents. So at the current rate, it will take 257 years to close the global gender pay gap, 257 years. So why should we wait centuries to be treated with respect and paid fairly and equally? I mean, so let's get real. What do you think it will take to make real, authentic, and sustainable change? And I mean, can we wait 257 years? Ritu, why don't you take the question first, and then Nneka, I would love to hear from you as well.
Well, I don't think we can wait 250 some years, and nor should we have to. I mean, it's taken centuries to even get to 77 cents on the dollar for men. One of the things I believe is that sunshine is the best disinfectant. And one of the best ways to change this is to get companies and organizations to start publishing how much they pay women, how much they pay men for the same positions. If they just had to report that, I think we'd see a lot of change. The second thing I'd say, and I would imagine Tai and Nneka, this, you may be able to relate to this, but sometimes we have to get up as women and demand to be paid more, especially when it comes to compensation. Women can have a tendency to not ask, not feel they're worth it. And that is something we have to change for ourselves.
I love what you said, Ritu, about the sunshine piece and illuminating like what's really happening. And I think oftentimes, especially when you think about some of the private companies who don't have to have these disclosures, it's all behind the closed door. And it's really important that we have the clear understanding of what is happening. I also fully appreciate what you said about standing up. And I'm sure Nneka can appreciate this. I am 6 feet myself, so I have no problem standing taller than anyone, and also sometimes being the loudest in the room as well. But we have to stand up and be bold in knowing what we deserve and unapologetic in that. Thank you so much for that, Ritu. Nneka, what are your thoughts?
Well, firstly, I love, Ritu, what you said about, companies needing to publish what they pay men and women, especially comparatively speaking in the same jobs, because I think you're right. That level of accountability will automatically shift change into more of equitable compensation and salary, of course, and that reflecting the value of the position and not the value of stigma, And so I think that really kind of brought an idea to my head, or I guess like a reference, in our last collective bargaining agreement in the WNBPA, we had a hard time going back and forth with the league at times, trying to figure out what the new salary cap could be. And that is because we are not fully transparent on the revenue of the league. And so it's very difficult for us to ask what the salary cap can be, or for us to negotiate what that salary cap can be, if we don't actually know how much the league is making. And so that transparency is incredibly important. One of many instances in which obstacles are presented in front of women to get that equity and the equal pay that we're so seeking. And I will have to say, we cannot wait 257 years. We will not wait 257 years. We should not. But what I want people to understand is that although we're not where we want to be, it doesn't mean that nothing's happening right now. I'm a huge proponent on the future being right now. And so we have to continue to work together. And Ritu's right. No one's going to declare your worth better than yourself. And so for so many women who are looking to do that, we are stronger in numbers. And that's something that we saw in negotiating a collective bargaining agreement in 2020 that wasn't necessarily our landing point, but it certainly was a catalyst and a great launch pad for where we want to see ourselves going. And we were able to raise the salary cap. We were able to get league marketing agreements and team marketing agreements that can supplement pay for players who may not want to play overseas anymore. And ultimately will hopefully lead to more agreements where we will see larger contracts for women, but we couldn't have done it without empowering each other and listening to each other, because quite frankly, I think we live in a world today where there's so much cancel culture. There's so much around what I have, what you don't have. And people just want to express what's going on with them, when in reality, we can learn so much about each other if we allow the platform for those who don't have the opportunity to speak, to be able to listen to them, because a lot of times what they're going through is what many other people are going through, but we have to be able to listen to those that can be helped the most, because eventually all boats will rise. So that's kind of my perspective as a woman and as the president of the WNBPA.
Thank you so much for that, Nneka. I really appreciate what you said about the transparency between us as women. One of the things I've been an entrepreneur for 17 years, so most of my career has not been in corporate structure, even though I have a lot of corporate clients and work very closely. And coming from the magazine and publishing world, where it was a predominantly white women industry at the time, women didn't necessarily talk about what we were earning. And so this transparency that you're saying right now in terms of how all boats will rise also requires for us to speak transparently about our earnings, and to have more of those conversations, not just in the ladies' room or at the water cooler, but just in general. And I have found, even as an entrepreneur, when I talk to, other entrepreneurs, wanting to share, how do we price this? What does it look like? And having those meaningful conversations of sharing between us, so then that way we can elevate together. So thank you so much for that context. I think that's really, really important, Nneka. Those were incredible answers. I have another important question for the two of you. So allies are absolutely vital in the struggle for gender equity and equal pay. Through your respective lenses, how can men and others become involved in women's struggle for equal pay? What are the entry point for men and others to become more involved? Because again, we talk about the allyship between women and the fact that we have to speak and share collectively. But what are the roles of others in this fight?
Something that I always like to tell people, and in 2020, I think there was a lot of interest in, say, those with platforms to speak to organizations and to companies and conglomerates about what they can do better for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there are two things that I always love to say and still say today is, one, when it comes to supporting women, it is not exclusive to women. And I think that it's important to understand that feminism or supporting women does not mean that you have to be one to do it. It actually might mean the opposite. And that's really what we need to get the investment that is required, because we are living in a world that was not built by those we surround ourselves with when we're trying to really declare our value. And then another thing that I always like to say is, if you're not doing it at home, what makes you think you're going to do it at work? We have to live authentically. We have to live intentionally. And so when it comes to advocacy, it's not hard because we see it being done for, the majority of those who believe that they have most of the power. And it's disparately unequal amongst whether it's Black, brown, Asian individuals, women, men, even especially going down the LGBTQIA. There's just so much disparity. But if you are living every day without that diversification in your life, without that consideration, or if you're living with that diversity in your life and you're not seeking more than just acquaintance, more than just a passerby, then that's how you're going to conduct yourself in every other thing. My strength coach always likes to say that she heard from her Stanford professor, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so it's important for advocacy to be internal. It's important for it to be at home. It's important for you to have the willingness to learn, to understand situations that you do not at all relate to, or to have hard conversations with people that you exclusively relate to. And it's something that everyone can do, and everyone can do in small ways that lead to a greater change. And when it comes to young men and boys, there has to be a woman in your life because we all came from one. So there's that relatability. And if you just bring it down back to the fundamentals of that, you will find a way to empower a woman or the movement of women in your life.
So profound, Nneka. And the idea of the illumination again and the sunshine that you referenced earlier is really important, Ritu, because we can't connect until there is illumination, an illumination of our minds, right? And a desire to connect and understand. And I love what you said about, it having to be at home. It's not enough. You can't go into the workplace and champion it if you're not connected to women, or if you don't have the diversity of relationship, even in your sphere in real life. Thank you for that so much, Nneka. Ritu, what would you say that men and others can do to support this incredible and necessary cause?
I think there's a lot that men can do. And I've noticed this really interesting thing about men, and that is that they are everywhere. And they are in all places and have access and can do things. And so I think men are wonderful. I think one of the things that will help us break through as a movement is for us to get much more comfortable having men as allies and not making them the enemy. I mean, the truth is really only a very small percentage of men that really hold everybody else down, and that also hold other men down. I have two boys and they've now grown into men, and I'm really proud of contributing two feminist men to the world. But just raising them made me so aware of all of the boxes that they get put in, right? And all of the negative expectations on boys, whether it's to be strong and fight, or whether it's don't cry, or whatever. Our boys need liberation too. And so I think we have a lot of common cause, actually, with men out there. In my work as an advocate and talking with people across the United States and trying to get them involved in supporting women around the world, I often find that fathers of daughters are some of the most passionate advocates, because they see what their daughters go through and what they live through and what happens to them in school vis-a-vis boys, or when they get their first jobs, how they're treated, different than the male teenagers. And so I think dads have come to have a really clear awareness of what it's like to grow up as a girl in this world. And I have seen dads of daughters be some of the most amazing, passionate advocates for everything, including pay equity. So I think we need to give dads some more credit than we do. There's a lot of good dads out there, and those are the ones I think we need to find and pull them into our movement and get them out there shouting side by side with us.
Incredible, Ritu. And I think that's a really important point, because allyship is not just about standing alongside. It's about really being immersed and connected to the movement and what it requires. And I think to that point, you really raised something that is critical that all women should ask ourselves. When we see potential allies, what are we doing to actually bring them along in the cause, so that way we can help educate them, support them, so that, we're not fighting alone. And I also just want to call out, I really appreciated what you said about being a mother of two boys. And that actually was really encouraging for me, because that is a part of the change, right? That is a part of how we change the cycle. And what I'm grateful for in this time, post-pandemic, I think this global consciousness that we have around humanity in a different way, but also heart space. We see a lot of, families raising their male children and boy children in a way that really speaks to understanding the divine feminine ultimately, right? We're in Women's History Month. And so with that, it won't take 257 years. It better not, right? Yeah. Because we have a new generation coming up who is going to be a lot more thoughtful, a lot more connected, and a lot more understanding of humanity as a whole. So that was really great. Thank you for that. You are both prolific in your respective fields, incredible change agents and leaders. And I know the audiences want to learn more about what you do, just as I do. Nneka, tell us about your journey in becoming an all-star WNBA player. And was it what you thought it would be? And, speak honestly, if you will, about the obstacles and challenges you did face, and how did you overcome them?
To be honest, I didn't have this vision as a young girl being a star basketball player in any way, not even in high school. And so, to kind of bring it back and a little succinctly, I was born and raised in Houston, Texas, to a Nigerian family. So I am the first of my family that was born here, and I'm the oldest of, my dad is a girl dad. I'm the oldest of 4 girls. And so, there's a lot of weight and responsibility that comes with that. I'm also the oldest granddaughter, second oldest grandchild. So culturally speaking, there's a lot of responsibility and expectation, and a lot of reverie around like my position in the family. And so growing up, it was always about family and excellence and legacy, and so that was always kind of in the back of my mind, and trying to equate that with what I wanted to do ended up steering me down the 3 paths that we always like to say that African parents give, and I'm sure other parents of similar culturally stout backgrounds give, is lawyer, doctor, engineer. And so science was my thing. I thought I was going to be a doctor, but my parents wanted us to be well-rounded. So I ended up getting into sports just to be healthy, and finding out that I was actually good at it. And then I was the guinea pig, but then eventually all 4 of us were playing. And the second that we not only learned that you could get a scholarship, but then once Stanford and Harvard started coming in, my parents were like, oh yeah, go and practice. And so I ended up giving a scholarship to Stanford University, which was amazing, still is. I actually say that the benefits of going to Stanford are not the 4 years that you're there, but the lifetime once you're gone. And got drafted to the WNBA. So I've been in California now half my life with the LA Sparks. And over the years, because of the background of my role as being a woman of Nigerian American descent and the expectations of those things, and being a Black woman in America, it was always about being unproblematic, doing the right thing, always going high, never going low, and not really finding my voice in a way that allowed me some vulnerability. But the WNBA kind of pushed me into a position of asking questions of myself. Who am I? What do I stand for? What do I value? And that came about because I've been playing this game for so long. And when someone now says, hey, we're going to pay you to do it, there is a transition that you don't quite experience, because I'm playing this because I love it. Now you're going to pay me to do it. It still feels like I'm just showing up because I want to, not because I have to. And so as you start learning about the business, you start considering, okay, what am I representing? When I go out here, I'm obviously representing the WNBA and the Sparks, and of course the name on my back, which is my family's name in the city that I'm playing in. But what else? What else makes me who I am as this woman in this world? So I ended up getting surrounded by some really amazing women, not just in this league, but also who I work with. I'm with Wasserman, and they have an amazing uh, group of women who who bring so much out of the women that they represent. And I've learned so much about what I want to be and who I want to imprint upon, and the legacy I want to leave. And so those challenges kind of came more from the insecurities that were kind of thrown on me, just being a woman born in this world, and eventually embracing the strengths of what I thought were weaknesses, and embracing the fact that I am a Black woman, a Nigerian woman, playing basketball, showing strength on the court, but also grace in other ways, showing leadership in the WNBPA. And every day the obstacles still come, but my attitude towards them has certainly changed. And it's a pleasure to just be able to speak with women like you two, to reflect on these things. And now I know two more strong women to add to my arsenal, that really keep me going. It's these connections that keep me going. So I'm very blessed to say that I'm about to play my 12th season with the same team that drafted me in LA. And I'm not stopping at the greatness that I can bring. And that's because of the community that I've surrounded myself with, including advocates that don't necessarily identify as women.
I really appreciate also the illumination that you've shared around, one, being in an environment where there are like-minded women. I appreciate what you shared about the obstacles around recognizing that you're layered, and that there are dimensions where I think oftentimes with men especially, they're not always clear about those layers for themselves, right? We have to show up in certain environments, be strong, and then we're unpacking, like, how do we show care and concern, no pun intended, in those dynamic experiences that come with being a woman leader who is going to advocate, who also has to show up in a certain way in these types of environments, especially in a male-dominated industry. I have to share with you personally, Nneka, that I know Paula Madison very well, who is one of the owners of the Sparks, and just incredible leadership. And I also should add, I'm a product of an all-girls high school. Shout out to my high school, St. Vincent Academy in Newark, New Jersey, and Spelman College as well, so an all-women's college. And so having been in these types of environments and then working in magazine publishing, I do also know the obstacles look different and feel different, and you also feel empowered to overcome those obstacles when you have those mirrors of other women, right? And so I fully appreciate that, Nneka. Thank you so much. So Ritu, CARE is known for innovative programming supporting vulnerable women and girls around the world. For example, the Village Savings and Loans Associations. Why is it this work, and why is this work important?
Well, first, I just want to say I really relate to Nneka's doctor, engineer. What was the third one? Lawyer?
Yeah,
Yeah,
lawyer.
lawyer wasn't even an option.
Mine was teacher.
Okay, that's good. I had doctor, engineer, and then I became a women's rights activist, and they were like, yeah, that wasn't in the plan. And yet it was really because of the life that my parents left in India and came here. And I was like you, born in Canada and raised in California and Arizona. But it was really how hard they worked to give me a good life, and the life they left in India that made me want to do something to give back to all the women and girls who couldn't leave India like I could with my family. In terms of VSLAs, Village Savings and Loan Associations, they are just the most remarkable little organizations anywhere in the world. So let me say a little bit about what they are for those people who don't know. What happens is in any village or any community, a group of people, often it's mostly women or all women, get together and they start saving small amounts of money. It could be pennies, a little bit of a dollar here, a dollar there. When they've had enough money in their kitty, they begin to loan it to one another. And they start to build businesses, they help their kids go to school, and they pay it back. And everybody's accountable to everybody in the groups have very high rates of repayment. And after women do this for a little while, sometimes months, sometimes years, they basically become an organized group. And they start to take on leadership roles in their communities. They start to do educational programs for other people in their communities. They start to ask, well, how come we don't have access to family planning? And they start organizing to get that need met. They start to make demands on their local government and say, hey, we need electricity and water over here. So this remarkable thing happens when people and women come together to just start saving together. It's like so much more than that starts to happen. And I think, Nneka, you could probably relate to it in terms of a players' union, right? Like you have so little power alone as individual players. But when you come together, all of a sudden there's this voice and there's this power and there's demands that you can make. And that is just the magic of VSLAs. And so CARE has tens of thousands of VSLAs, millions of people are saving and doing this together. But it's almost like it becomes a lab for action, for analysis, for advocacy. And really just truly remarkable things happen. So we at CARE are really excited. We have a goal of expanding VSLAs to 60 million people around the world. I think we're going to get there because a lot of what happens with VSLAs is a woman in one village will hear about it happening in the other village. She'll be like, I want some of that. And she'll bring it to her village. And it has a tendency to just spread on its own. And that's how we know it's a really good thing.
I love hearing that and the ripple effect of the interest around creating financial stability and financial accountability as well, right? And how women are coming together in that way. And then you realize the other parts of the building that happens, the fact that it impacts communities, it impacts job opportunity. And, we find that, and the village model is interesting, right? Because I'm sure, as you're creating these around the world, they're very similar to urban communities here, even in the States, right? And so we know when you create socioeconomic opportunity, when you create socioeconomic understanding and literacy and education, how that becomes really the catalyst for growth and empowerment in all ways, right? From educational advancement, from community advancement, from family building and establishment. So that is wonderful. I'm curious to kind of see the model and just really understand even more. It's really exciting to hear. So thank you so much for sharing that, Ritu. Before we go, in a few words, any final words of wisdom, a hope or a call to action you'd like to share with the audiences as we continue. And I don't want to just say struggle together. I want to say fight forward and build together and really advance pay equity.
The last thing I would say is you can join CARE. If you want to get active, just go to careaction.org and sign up to become an advocate with us. Like we make it super easy to get involved, to get engaged, to have your voice make a difference. And what I can tell you this year is that we really, really need you more than ever. We have a big fight ahead of us to get some resources to women and girls around the world. So if you have a spare 5 minutes, go to careaction.org and join our movement. That is the best thing that you can do.
Very simple and straightforward. I'm sure everyone will be clicking to do so, Ritu. Nneka, any final words?
As we work towards progress and equity, and speaking specifically as a woman in sport in the WNBA, the most successful and longest standing women's professional league in I believe in North America is, or maybe even the world. But the easiest thing I can say is to advocate for us is to watch a game, go to a game, buy season tickets, watch League Pass, buy a jersey. We see it happening. It happens everywhere else. So the investment for this is no different than what already exists for other professional men's leagues. So just support the WNBA in whatever way you can.
Thank you so much, Nneka. I want to add, if you are a corporate employee and work within a corporation, go to your HR department, ask what you can do, be a part of affinity groups. And if they don't exist, create them. So that way, I think we talked a lot about awareness and illumination that starts there. And then as a proud Black woman founder with multiple businesses. And actually, I founded Brown Girl Jane alongside my two Spelman sisters. So when you talk about, the connection there that happens, support Black women-owned businesses, support businesses by women-owned businesses as a whole, but definitely those that are founded by Black and brown women. That matters a lot. And that dollar goes very, very far, especially as we continue to work to raise capital to grow and build these businesses. Thank you, Nneka and Ritu, for taking the time to be with us today. Please connect with CARE to learn and do more to support women around the world. Visit care.org/women know how and follow CARE on all social platforms for inspiring stories about women taking charge of their own destinies. Stay safe, everyone.